Hi guys, it's Alex and welcome to Series 1, Episode 2 of this tutorial series H SoundWorks Scores. In my last episode, I covered the process of developing the concept and melody for my rescore to the title sequence of BBC 4 crime and drama series called The Bridge. Today I'm going to talk you through the process of harmonising and arranging all the string parts to create a full sounding arrangement, talking you through both the theoretical and compositional techniques. So we're going to be screencasting directly from Cubase on this episode, so let's go. The rest of the strings actually join in to this melody when it hits the top G here, and I'm going to start off with the viola part that I wrote, because obviously I wrote that melody for the first violin and it's playing that currently. So yes, the first viola part I start off with harmonizing that G here with the B flat, and just to let you all know that A sharps and and D sharps in this particular video are going to refer to as B flats and E flats, just because diatonically they sit with G minor. Only the F sharp's alright, just because it's the sharp 7, which hints at the harmonic minor, but the A sharps and D sharps are going to be B flats and E flats. So yes, so I start off this viola part by harmonizing the third of G, which is B flat, which then resolves to the tonic of G and then up to this A here, which in conjunction with that D that's playing on top, that is hinting at a D minor chord. So here's that very first part. And then on this next part, I'm continuing the alternating between that B flat and A in the viola part, and then I go down to this F sharp here, which in conjunction to the C on top gives a little bit of dissonance and a slight sense of uncomfortability. So I really like that about this particular bit. So here's that next section. And then this next bit is slightly sparser than these two previous sections, but they're simple and just as effective. So I hit this B flat, which is hitting it at the same time as this D up here, which hints at a B flat major chord, and then hit this D and then to the E flat. Now that E flat's quite important, just because it's hinting at that tritone again, and I like that sense of dissonance that you get in strings. It's something that is practiced by the likes of Thomas Newman in scores like The Shawshank Redemption or something like that. Just having a slight bit of dissonance in the mid-range part of the strings really richens it all up. So that's kind of what I wanted to achieve by using these types of intervals. So here's this next section. So that was the first viola part that I wrote. I did include a second one as well. This one is much more focused on the fifths here. So when that first viola is harmonizing with that B flat here, the second viola is completing that with a D. So obviously it's just completing that G minor triad, and it's kind of harmonizing fifths throughout here. So you see the D here, the C here, which actually in conjunction with the D, C and A is actually the 7th of D minor. So it's kind of hinting at these various tones. It doesn't play quite as significant role as the first viola part, but it definitely gives a bit of colour and flavour. So here's that first section with the second viola part added in. And then from here, I'm just harmonizing the C. It's pretty simple in terms of that. And then the next big part that the second viola actually plays in this particular bit is when it hits that F there. And previously, when it was just the first viola and first violin, we were thinking, yes, there's a D and A, but it could be major, it could be minor, because obviously we're in the harmonic minor here, so we're talking about the F sharp. It could be either. It was a little bit ambiguous, but with this second viola playing that F right there, that suggests obviously a D minor chord. So that's possibly, and it also sticks out quite a lot in the whole orchestra. It's quite an important part. So that is the most important part of this particular viola score. Sorry, this viola part. So I'll just play it from here. And then from there, whilst the first whilst the first viola part is playing that E flat, the second viola part is playing that D. So having that minor second, which is again a very Thomas Newman influenced thing, particularly for strings. I really liked that dissonance which it came up with. I thought it sounded really cool and kind of just completely cut through the mix. So that's why I wanted to use that in this viola part. And then it harmonizes down here to a C, then up to a D. So just playing that very last part once more. So that was the second viola part that I wrote. So the next part that I included was the cello, just to give it a little bit more low end and beef about the sound. So I start off on this top G here. I harmonise that with a low G on the cello, just to kind of start off with an octave lower, or 2 octaves lower, sorry. And then I harmonise this down to an E flat here, which is hinting at an E flat major chord. We have an E flat, G, G, B flat and D here, so it's actually hinting at a E flat major 7 chord, and then down to a D here. So just to show you that first part. And then I very quietly play this F here. It's very dynamic of the cello, and it's very quiet, but then it leads into the next section well, so it kind of crescendos into it, which sounds a bit like this. It's not quite as apparent now with just a string quartet, but in the full arrangement it really, also with automation and things like that, it really increases the dynamic range and just increases the expression of everything. So that's that section. And then next the cello is playing this G here in combination with E flat, B flat and G obviously, so that there is suggesting at an E flat major chord, which is the 6th chord of G minor, and then we again harmonise with that E flat in the bass here. But in conjunction with the A and the 2 C's here, that suggests like a diminished triad, because we got the A, the flat 3rd of C, and the flat 5th of E flat, which sounds like this. Slight bit of dissonance, which I really liked in those string parts. To then play an F sharp, which is the viola part. So again, that's kind of taking, this F sharp here is taking the role of what that F was doing, kind of bringing it all down and bridging these two sections together, and right at the end of the phrase to all bring it up, and in come the rest of the strings. So again, it's almost like a call and response format. Now this cello is actually going quite high on this particular bit. On this C here. So that's a D minor 7 chord, yeah, as we can see. But I wanted to again have that Thomas Newman influence by playing those slightly ambiguous chord intervals. So I'm talking major seconds and minor seconds and things like that. I didn't want to have quite as dissonant sound in this particular bit, but that C and D, and inverting that whole D minor chord to a 3rd inversion and having that major second right there kind of really gives a little bit of ambiguity about the sound, and that's what I really like. It richens up the whole thing. It's not quite as apparent in this string quartet here, but when it's introduced, that slight dissonance in that really kind of brings out the rest of the strings. So here's how that particular bit sounds. But then I actually modulate. I turn to B natural. Of course, we're in G minor, so we have 2 flats. We have a B flat and an E flat, but here I'm modulating down to G major very temporarily to just hint at the major. So from here, I modulate that to a B natural, which kind of, in the midst of all the chord tones and intervals and kind of trying to get a dissonant atonal sound, well, not atonal, but just, yeah, like a dissonant sound through the strings, I wanted to kind of bring it back down to life a little bit and kind of just go, hey, like here is a slightly more natural major sound about it. Builds up and then resolves into that B natural, but that feeling doesn't last very long, just because here in this particular part it gets a little bit more dissonant again and expressive in all the modulation wheels and the automations. I'm going back down to an E flat here, whilst also playing a C in the cello, so E flat and C, hinting at a C minor, and then we've got that D and C. So again, it's that use of ninths, it's that use of seconds, as we can see here, C and D. Those two kind of really were important to that richness and fullness of the whole string sound. So yeah, that's how this bit sounded, and with all that automation and modulation wheels and things like that, it really sounds very expressive. And then again, we bring it down just before that last chord, and to hint at this bit, we're playing a B flat on the cello. The last part of it was adding in the double basses, obviously, to really give that low end. So it's pretty much exactly the same as the cello parts, obviously an octave down, but just kind of not, it's quite sparse. So in this particular part, it's following what it's doing in the cello. So you have a G, E flat, and D, and then it's kind of fairly sparse for a bit, just to kind of hint at that when that cello hits that F there, that kind of really quiet bit, and then to lead into the next big expressive bit. So here's that first bit. So it leads into that next bit where that double bass is playing the G and then that E flat, which is exactly the same as the cello parts here. And then in this particular part, the double bass is quite subtle and quite minimalistic, but it's still playing pretty much the same as what the cello's playing. But so here we have that D and then the C, but of course that C is 2 octaves below. To then harmonise that E flat and A flat, which in conjunction with that C and D right there, and all of those major seconds and minor seconds and all those ambiguous intervals, really richens up the whole sound. So just to show you that last bit. And then hitting that final chord right there, we have that tritone of E flat and A, but then we have the C and G, and I believe that the top violin is hitting an F sharp in conjunction with that double bass. So with all of those intervals, it kind of gives, with that crescendo, a little bit of tension, and then it releases through that piano part on that soft piano from Spitfire Audio, and that very simple melody which is played on that cello. So that was the final part of this string section, and here's just a very short example of it. And of course, to achieve that richness, a couple of things were done in the layering and the mixing process, which I'm going to be talking through throughout the episodes in this series. So I'll see you then.